In this video, I'm going to show you a little bit of getting started on the lips that are closed, because if you remember, you will be required to do one set of closed lips, and you'll be required to do one of the two open lips. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can start the lips. You'll see that on this example, they really just give you the line that goes in between the two lips. So really, the exact placement, the way that you do it is kind of up to you. But there are different things that are online that you can look at. You can also remember the way that we started the previous lip, where we had started this one by adding the lines sort of around. So like this is the center line. That's what your image in your packet gives you. And then you add the bow, you add the bottom curve, and you add the middle. And that would be one option. You can also do it more to where you start with the line here, for instance, and then there are people who will come in here and draw a circle for the lower lips, 2 circles, which basically becomes these 2 areas. And then they'll put a little circle here, kind of on the line, and then 2 smaller ones here to sort of overlap it, so that 5 circle sort of combination would start to be the shading, because you'd have a circle here, here, you'd have one here, and then these 2. So that is actually a very effective way of starting the lip. And then there will be other people still who just kind of look at the shape. So on this one, for instance, if I'm just looking at the shape, it might just kind of start something like that, and then you would go in with the shading. So once again, the exact way that you choose to start your lips is up to you, but I do want you to make sure that you are looking at your reference image in your packet very closely and carefully, drawing nice and slow, and still going in methodical layers. So I'm just going to actually draw the lip that is slightly turned down. So again, I'm going to start over here with a line that kind of mimics that shape. And once again, it's okay if it's not 100% accurate. The main point here is to be able to produce something that is realistic looking. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And then I'm actually going to do the circles. So I'm going to put one circle here for the lower lip. And then I'm going to put one here for the lower lip as well. Make sure that they're about the same size, about evenly spaced. And then one is going to go sort of on that line and be smaller than the other 2. And then these 2 go a little bit above the line. They overlap that smaller one, and they're about the same size as that smaller one. So it looks really weird at first, but those might be sort of my first bits there. And then I'm going to go ahead and go in with some outlining. So that might be sort of the beginning outlining steps. And then I'd be ready to go ahead and start into some shading. And I'm going to leave my circles there at first, because they're going to help me with some of that shading. Because I am going to start by treating the lips kind of like those spheres here. Very lightly, not getting very dark at all yet. Just kind of going around. Because all this is really doing is starting to help you figure out where those highlights are going to be. So you want it to start very light and then start to include the space around those circles. And again, this is just one way of doing the lips. There is not necessarily a right or a wrong. It's really up to each person what works best for them. So right now I'm still just doing some very basic, very light shading. I'm going to go ahead and start shading in the direction of the lip here on this lower lip especially, just because there's a lot of highlight area there. So I know that that did not look like very much yet at all, but what I'm going to do next is going to go ahead and erase sort of those circles, because I don't want those lines and those spheres to overpower the rest of the lips. So I'm leaving the hint of shading that I have there, but erasing the actual circle edges. And then I'm just going to go in and sort of firm up that spot in between the two lips. Still treating it like a value scale, so I'm going to fade it up into that upper lip a little bit. And then I'm going to also fade it down a little bit, especially on the far sides of the center, not necessarily on the center of that lower lip. And in the middle here. Because as you go along with your lip, one of the things that you will learn and notice is that this section and this section both tend to just kind of fade into the skin under the lip. You'll have a shadow under here pretty much every time, and then this will fade into the skin, and so will this section. So now my next step is going to be to just look at my reference image and just really practice some observational shading. So then I'm holding the pencil pretty far out to the side, still building up that value in layers. But I am going to start getting some of those darker values in there now. Still being careful to make sure that everything I do is a value transition at this point, not just a line. And I'm shading in sort of a curvilinear up and down motion, so that the actual texture and volume of the lips goes ahead and starts to come through a little bit here. Okay, get a little darker, then move toward the corner here. And then do the same thing on this side a little bit. But I do notice that the left highlight, so the highlight here, is a little bit brighter than the highlight on this side. So I want to make sure that I maintain that in my own drawing as well. On this side, I'm actually going to start in the corner and work my way towards that highlight. Still shading in that up and down motion of the lip. Getting lighter and lighter as I get towards that highlight area. But still keeping my shading as nice and smooth as I can. Just going to come in here and darken sort of the corner spaces of my lip a little bit. Still just using my 2B or my HB. No tortillon yet, if at all. No kneaded eraser yet. Just really starting to get some of the shading on that lip. So right now it just looks very gray on top and very white on the bottom. So then the next thing I'm going to do would be to go ahead and start into some of the shading on that bottom lip. Paying attention once again to where we have reflected light. Because if you remember, the bottom lip is typically where more of that reflected light is. And is also generally a little bit lighter. Especially as it will, again, just kind of fade into the skin on those sort of outer sections. And this particular lip is a little bit darker here than it is on the top part of that lower lip. But it does still fade into the skin area here. So it is going to be a value transition once again. I will be erasing some of those lines under that space. And that just shows where the corner of the lip would be, sort of where the crease of the smile would come up. And then once again, go ahead and move to the other side a little bit. And in the next video, I'm just going to continue showing you a little bit of how to do the lower lip. Because remember, this exact technique and method and option for shading applies to all of the closed lips. So whichever one you choose, this video should be helpful with that.